I'm going to speak not from my private sector experience, but just from the neighborhood council perspective. First, what is Mid-City West? We're one of LA's about 90 certified neighborhood councils. We provide an advisory role to the city and metro and other government bodies on land use, transportation, and other issues. This map shows our boundaries. We go from West Hollywood all the way down to Olympic and San Vicente, and then La Brea on the east, west over to the West Hollywood, Beverly Hills sort of irregular boundary. We have 45 board members. We're the largest neighborhood council in the system. 7 of them are at large, and all the rest of them represent one of 18 different categories. The important part of the neighborhood council system is it's sort of everyone who gets to participate is a stakeholder, and that's defined as those who live, work, or own property in the neighborhood.
Work.
And those who declare a stake in the neighborhood and affirm the factual basis for it. If you look at 2010 census data within our boundaries, we have about 59,000 residents. If you look at some of the work that Metro did for planning the subway within our boundaries, there's about 63,000 employees. So we're very evenly balanced. A little harder to determine how many people actually own property, and then harder to determine how many people attend schools, religious institutions, cultural institutions, all the rest of it. But we represent a lot of people and a lot of varied interests. The subject today is livability, and I think livability means different things to different people when it comes to transportation issues. And I think there's sort of kind of 3 categories. One is sort of people who are really focused on traffic, those who are focused on mobility, and then a focus on accessibility, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Traffic really focuses on how well cars move, and a focus on the automobile, on traffic speed and congestion. In that sort of viewpoint, almost any development adds to the problem when you're in a neighborhood like this. And you get solutions, was mentioned, the crosswalk getting taken out at Wilshire. It's about moving cars, and only about moving cars, and very little regard to the rest of the stuff. Mobility expands that a little bit to really it's about moving people and sort of defined about like how far you can go within a given amount of time. It kind of assumes that going further is better, and it focuses on improving capacity of the transit system, but it does include stuff more about transit, bicycling, and pedestrians. Accessibility really focuses on how easy or hard it is to get to the places you want to go. It tends to be more inclusive of alternate modes, especially bicycling and walking. And the focus is sort of on the total travel cost, which is the time you get there, the comfort and ease of getting there, and then development can be part of the solution. And so they're really very different viewpoints. And so the debate that we have at the Neighborhood Council, because we represent so many interests, is sort of people who put a greater emphasis on traffic and mobility, and those who put a greater emphasis on accessibility. Just these maps show, this is a map showing from this location here about how far you can walk in half an hour. And sort of mobility would sort of look at how big is that circle, and accessibility would look at what's in that circle. You have the farmers market in the Grove and LACMA and all the other businesses on Wilshire here. There's a site called WalkScore I invite you to all look at. If any of you, are any of you familiar with that site? It's at walkscore.com. It provides a rough measure of walkability and ranks. You can just type in your address and you'll get a score. Mid-City West, which the way that they define it excludes the Miracle Mile, ranks 89 out of 100 in terms of neighborhoods in the city of Los Angeles. That's the 3rd highest. This address here also ranks 89 out of 100. If you compare like to Porter Ranch, which is a neighborhood way in the North Valley, they rank a 34 out of 100, almost at the bottom. And if you look at like transit, obviously you can get a lot further than you can walk. It tends to be sort of linear along the transit routes. And auto traffic can affect travel time, so that's one reason why you look at transit programs like the Wilshire peak hour bus lanes, the subway, the expo line, stuff that gets the transit out of traffic. So Mid-City West, sort of the traffic mobility and accessibility interests largely converge when it comes to a lot of these transit improvements. Very strong support for the subway, strong support for the dash and the local trolley. A little less support for things like the peak hour bus lanes because you're potentially taking the lane away from cars. If you look at bicycling, that's sort of, again, the 30-minute map. Auto traffic doesn't add much to your travel time. Bikes can scoot in and out of cars. One thing I'll say, advantage, I'm a bicyclist, so I'll make the pitch. The advantage that bicycling has is for transit, you're stuck going where Metro or Dash wants to take you, when Metro or Dash want to take you there. And bicycle infrastructure allows you to go wherever it is you want to go, whenever you want to go. The way it plays out sort of on the neighborhood council level is overall there's support, but it does become more controversial because, particularly in a neighborhood like this with more narrow streets, adding bike infrastructure tends to be viewed as taking something away from a car. And so the people who are really focused on congestion tend not to be supportive of bike improvements. Real local example here, if any of you know Hauser Martel, sort of a great street to bicycle on because it has lights at all the major intersections. Because of the congestion on Fairfax and La Brea, a street that about 10,000 cars a day also want to drive on. And where you really get a divergence is really on sort of the land use and development issues that we've been talking about here. If you have sort of the pro-accessibility view, it tends to be very supportive of development. The more stuff that you get to do that you're putting in the neighborhood, the more restaurants, the more stores. Trader Joe's at 3rd and Fairfax, that's fantastic. If you kind of are focused on traffic and congestion, you're like, what in the world are you doing putting a Trader Joe's at the already horrifically congested intersection of 3rd and Fairfax? So, you get a real conflict. And, I don't know that either view is illegitimate. I mean, I suspect because all of you are here, you probably tend to one side of that, debate. If I worked in Downey, and had kids in private schools spread across the city, I'd be really concerned about traffic and congestion. They're not necessarily illegitimate, but I think sometimes they can be irreconcilable. And our challenge sort of at the neighborhood council local level when we're discussing this is sort of keeping the discussion open and civil when very often people are having different conversations. And our solution, unfortunately, I can't say we found the solution to resolving that. But I do think it's important to keep in mind that the kind of different conversations around these issues that people are having. Like I said, if you support TOD, you're having a conversation about accessibility and all the stuff that's there. But there are people who are having a very different conversation, and it's helpful to keep that in mind.
I think that's great.